Hey everybody, I am back from the Baltics. I'm back from Lithuania where I did a speech yesterday on the outlook for the Baltic economies and particularly for the Baltic property market, but that is not what I'm going to talk about to this morning. In fact, I didn't plan to talk to you about anything, but then we got a little bit of news just in from the Swedish Debt Office, and they have released a statement, and I'll read it to you from my phone here. It says, the Swedish National Debt Office will take a position for a stronger krona against the euro, aiming to reduce the cost of central government debt. As a result, the foreign currency exposure of the central bank debt will decrease at a slower pace. So what is this? Well, the Swedish krona strengthened around 0.5% just as the news was coming out. And you can see I find this somewhat funny or bizarre, or I don't know how to say this, but because this is the Swedish Debt Office, also in Swedish known as RiksCrazy, who has taken a position to strengthen the Swedish krona. The Swedish Debt Office is effectively intervening in the FX market to strengthen the krona. They are sucking up liquidity. They are trying to indirectly reduce the Swedish money base. They are undertaking monetary operation. This is a fiscal institution trying to undertake monetary operations to strengthen the krona. You know, maybe this morning somebody showed up at RiksCrazy and, you know, had a problem saying RiksCrazy and Riksbanken. Riksbanken is a Swedish central bank. RiksCrazy is something different. It's the debt office. You know, the division of labor normally is very clear here. The debt office takes care of that government debt. The central bank takes care of monetary policy. But this morning, apparently, the debt office thought, well, we need to intervene in the FX market to strengthen the krona. This is effectively what they're doing. You know, in recent weeks, the central bank officials in Sweden have been out saying, well, the Swedish krona is weak, but it's weak because the market is seeing that we want to ensure that we hit our inflation target of 2%. So what is this? We now have two government entities, the central bank and the debt office, essentially in a war over the level for the Swedish krona. And they're ultimately for the tightness of monetary policy in Sweden. So you have the debt office trying to tighten monetary policy by intervening in the FX market. And the central bank essentially saying that it was perfectly calibrated until 20 minutes or so ago, 30 minutes ago, when the Riksbank or the RiksCrazy, the debt office decided to intervene in the FX market. We've had a lot of emerging market turmoil recently, and you know, Sweden would normally not be in that basket, but this is emerging market behavior from Swedish government institutions. This is well, it's not going to do much damage, but it's a little bit laughable. And we have a situation where we now have the central bank being okay with the level of the krona, and the RiksCrazy, the debt office, trying to push stronger. So who will win this war of the krona? Well, the central bank will. If the Swedish Riksbank, the central bank, wants a weaker krona, it will get it. It can just print money. Of course, the debt office can just issue debt and try to move it in another direction, but this is silly. So, but let's take it to this. This is a good reason to explain the so-called Sumner critique, named after my good friend Scott Sumner. The Sumner critique essentially says that the ultimate control of all nominal variables in the economy is in the hands of the central bank. If the central bank wants a certain level for the exchange rate, it can get it. If the central bank wants a certain level for nominal GDP or inflation, it can get it by printing more or less money. and commit to doing so. No action by the government, with the exception of getting rid of the central bank, can change that. So if RiksGälden wants a stronger currency, if the debt office wants a stronger currency, it's essentially pushing the krona in a stronger direction, sucking up liquidity, and hence reducing inflationary pressures. 10 minutes ago, I updated our inflation forecast for inflation in Sweden. Our two-year inflation forecast is now exactly at 2%. So two-year, that's inflation in 2 years and then 2 years ahead, the average of that. So more or less where the Riksbank should be targeting. So essentially our inflation forecast said the Riksbank got it perfectly right given the present level of the Swedish krona. And now the debt office comes in and trying to strengthen the krona. Hence, the consequence, if they will full throttle on this, if it was successful, would be that it would push the krona stronger, tight monetary conditions, lead the Riksbank to undershoot the inflation target. Let's say now the Riksbank, the central bank, observe this, and I'm very sure they did observe this morning. I'm pretty sure Stefan Ingves, the central bank governor, is not delighted by this action. If he is, then, well, how can he react to this? He's now seeing monetary conditions being tightened, meaning that the risk of undershooting the inflation target has just increased by the actions of the debt office. How can he and how should he respond to that? He needs to come out and say, I will offset this. If this causes inflation to drop below our target, if this causes inflation expectations to drop further below our target, we need to take additional action to ease monetary conditions. We will postpone any rate hikes. We will print money. We will intervene in the FX market. We can do all this. Stefan Ingves, you need to say this now. You need to come out and say, I'm sorry, I am in control of monetary policy. The debt office is not running monetary policy in this country. I am. The central bank is running it. He won't say that. It's after all consent to Sweden. But this is bizarre. It's really bizarre that you have a situation of this. I might be overplaying this. This might just be a little bit on the fringe, and it might actually be that the central bank thinks that it can do both, and this is a concerted effort. But no, it's very odd. After all, Sweden has a floating exchange rate, but I have noticed Swedish commentators recently failing really to realize that when you have a floating exchange rate, the market determines the exchange rate based on expectations of the economy and the actions of the central banks in terms of hitting its inflation target. And now the debt office is taking action to tighten monetary policy in Sweden. And if it continues to push in that direction, the central bank will have to push harder in the other direction. So if you're thinking about this, where the Swedish krona is going, you should be ignoring what I talked about for the past 8 minutes and 30 seconds, because they have absolutely no bearing on where the Swedish krona will be in a year's time. The Swedish krona is probably around 10% undervalued in real terms on a PPP basis, and it will strengthen in real terms over the next year. But I said in real terms. And there is a difference between real and nominal terms. You can be in a situation where a currency is undervalued in real terms, but where it would be warranted that it would be even weaker in nominal terms. So imagine you have a situation where the currency is undervalued on a real basis, on a PPP basis, but the central bank is not hitting its inflation target. Inflation is below, or inflation expectation is below the target. Then the central bank really ought to push for a weaker currency, even though it's undervalued. What would that mean in real valuation terms? Well, that would mean that the adjustment of the real undervaluation would have to happen through the relative development in inflation. And this is exactly what the central bank would like to see. So if you are below your inflation target, you would like to see inflation accelerate relative to the outside world. And that would, of course, is the same as a real appreciation of your currency. But that would happen without a normal appreciation of your currency. But in Sweden, I believe we will both get a real and a nominal appreciation. It will get it gradually over the next 1-2 years. There is no reason for this foolishness. But I guess the political pressure has been too big. The Swedish krona is undervalued. Leave it to the market. For God's sakes, it's summer, the wonderful weather in Stockholm right now. Relax. It's 10:30 in Stockholm now, or whatever it is. Closely to 10:30 in Stockholm. Take an early lunch. Enjoy the weather and stop, for God's sakes, intervening in the FX market. Leave it to the market. Leave it to the market. Thank you very much and have a nice weekend.